only share this with students in the class, obviously. Do any of you have any questions on the Canvas site so far? Okay.
I just wanted to know if due dates are listed. Like, is it due on a Sunday at midnight? Or because
Like
we're not meeting on Wednesdays, so.
Yeah, so for the journals, and I'll go over, once we go over the syllabus, I'll go over the journal guidelines that are on iLearn, or excuse me, on Canvas, just as long as you do it before the next class. So that's good with me. With the other like assignments that we have, I'll update those due dates as we go along. Okay. And like fair warning, there's a lot of films we're going to watch, and I do have kind of an ambitious reading schedule for us. So I know like life has been crazy. So if we need to adjust that, that's totally all right. Okay. But we can kind of talk about that. But these readings are really like good readings. And I've told students before in this class that once you take this class, you'll never look at movies or writing the same way again. It's like putting on glasses that now you won't be able to take off. And they told me that that's true. So I don't want to ruin like films for you, but it's going to be like very different. Okay, so what I want to do, actually, can I show you guys some videos to kind of give you like a little bit of a primer before I have you do our first activity, and then we'll look at our syllabus after that. Okay, let me share my screen. Now, if I'm going to play this for a second, and let me know if you can hear it.
The time we find our way to multiple.
Yeah, okay, great. So these are like short clips. I want you to kind of think about your reactions to these and maybe your relationship to some of these. And we'll chat about them for a second after. So these are all things that are connected to the history of travel writing, and the kind of narratives that are in these have gone back. We're going to start with Columbus, but they actually start way before that.
He and his team are turning this morning's camel into this afternoon's lunch. The organs go into the saute pan. He has liver and the testicles. The fat from the camel hump, along with some muscle and sheep fat, goes into the meat grinder with some extra ingredients to make camel kebabs. But here's how it works in the souk. One stall sells the raw meat, another one makes and grills the kebabs. We took the ground camel meat down here, a couple of kilos worth, brought it to this guy who shaped it onto kebabs, and he's grilling it right now over the coals, and then he'll hand it back to us, and we'll truck it on back down and feed all the butchers. Thank you very much. Thank you. It's beautiful. That's some grilled camel. Oh, beautiful. He's on the phone with his stockbroker. Actually, it's the wife checking up on him. It's a cultural universal. Oh, very nice. Ground meat, liver, the balls. Fantastic. A little camel sausage. Wow. You would never know that you weren't eating beef. Solid, beautiful, bovine goodness. Despite the fact that this isn't cow, the camel tastes very, very sweet. This is...
Okay.
You think I'm an ignorant savage, and you've been so many places, I guess it must be so. But still I cannot see if the savage one is me. How can there be so much that you don't know? You don't know. You think you own whatever land you land on. The earth is just a dead thing you can claim. But I know every rock and tree and creature. has a life, has a spirit, has a name. Think the only people who are people are the people who look and think like you. But if you walk the footsteps of a stranger, you learn things you never knew. Have you ever heard the wolf cry to the blue-corn moon, or asked the grinny bobcat why he grinned? Can you sing with all the voices of the mountain? Can you paint with all the colors of the wind?
Okay, I had to get to the hook first. Okay, let's look at the next one. Okay, so you can see there's a lot of different parts of popular culture that kind of relate back to these narratives that we're going to look at that I'll kind of be explaining throughout the semester. But were there any of these that you watched that you had like a reaction to, or even like a sentimental feeling towards?
I think my biggest reaction was to the camel one. It was just something very different to me.
So it felt like it was something kind of new that, or foreign, that very different from something that you're used to. Mm-hmm. How many of you watch Bizarre Foods? Yeah. Okay. So that's like the whole premise of a show, right? Eating things that seem really like strange, right? Okay. What were some others that you had reactions to?
Mine's always music. I knew all the songs. Actually, I knew every video, but I knew all the songs and like all the words. Like I could have sang along because you just hear them a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it be like on old radio or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
Which
Yeah.
I like all the songs, even though I know they're inappropriate.
I know it's hard because I was like, because I have a standing desk and I'm like dancing to it, right? But there's very problematic. These are problematic songs. Yeah. What were some others that we had reactions to? Anybody have like a sentimental attachment to Disney?
Yeah, Pocahontas. I think this is going to date me. I was in like the 4th grade when that movie came out. And that song to this day, like you were just saying, I love music and I'll sing along to everything. But that song, it actually still gets me emotional, even at my age. Just the message, the obvious message, but I also just love the movie. It's nostalgic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I could go farther, but yeah, I had a reaction there.
Okay, yeah, so it feels like, oh, go ahead. I didn't want to cut you off.
Oh, no, it's okay. Yeah, you're good.
Okay, yeah, so this like nostalgia, right? And it feels
Mhm.
comforting. It's something that we're used to seeing and that we have like good, warm, fuzzy feelings about, right? Anybody else? Regine, I saw you unmuted yourself. Do you want to add something?
I think I also kind of reacted to Pocahontas, or like in the past have had a reaction because, you know, like when you're younger, you watch these movies and you get attached to it because it's just like, you know, it's musical and cartoon, all that stuff. And then as you get older and you realize things throughout your life and like whatnot, then you can relate it back to the movie and see like how actually problematic, like, or not necessarily problematic, but you can see what's actually like, you know, transpiring on the movie and makes a little bit more sense, or it's connected to you, you know?
Well, you know, I mean, honestly, I know Disney's Disney, but Disney has a lot of problems.
Yeah.
A lot. If you go back through the history of Disney films, and I've had students in the class analyze like Song of the South and like, I mean, Dumbo, like I could name like almost every Disney movie, Mulan, right? There are issues with these movies. So that could be a whole class in itself, analyzing Disney. So don't worry if you're kind of like, oh, you know what, maybe there's problems with this when you look at it as an adult, because you're right.
Yeah. I also like through watching the clips that you had, there was kind of like a constant, which I would say is like the white savior or the white throughout some of those clips, you know, like bringing who are considering their food bizarre when in reality that's the food that they eat, like just like we eat like burgers, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
yeah. So it's being looked at through like this Western white lens, right?
exactly.
And that's kind of a big thing. It's when you read the Othering article, this Western lens is looking at everything else as like different or strange. And it's really a way to kind of reassure the self being like the West and saying, oh, good, I'm normal, I'm all right, because I don't do weird stuff like this, right? But it's not weird. It's this is the other culture, right? Anybody else? Felicity, did you want to add anything?
For me, like just watching through the clips of everything that was shown, because I've taken like an intersectionality, like racism and looking at, you know, sex, racism, and gender, and seeing how it all clashes through the narrative through and how people are depicted is from differences, and just going back over them and looking at everything differently. Just how everyone's opinion at the time of like how they saw people as villains, or the way they were depicted as people were savages because they were different, and how just because they're different from people makes us hesitant to accept cultures and people, and it makes us look at everything strangely and not be accepting of it, or like to tell, like kind of like it serve as a warning that you know, like just these people are different, we don't know them, they're unknown, so there's reason to be fearful of them.
Yeah, and like fear being kind of an important like component of that narrative too, is saying that anybody on the outside who's like different should be feared. You should protect yourself against them. And that kind of being used to justify a lot of violence and colonialism and repressive tactics, right? By saying, well, we have to fear these people, so we have to control them, right? Okay, good discussion so far. So what I'm going to have you do, see if I can make this work. Maybe. Okay, so I just put a link in the chat. I'm gonna put you guys into breakout rooms for about 5 minutes. I'd like you in your breakout room to pick somebody to be your recorder. And so hopefully they can get onto the Google Doc and add some information in there. If you can't, just type it up and then we will put it in the Google Doc later. But let me show you what the Google Doc looks like. Okay, so this is a brainstorm document. So, well, you guys are fast. I'm still like catching up and waking up in the morning. So what I'd like you to do in your groups, so each group just kind of pick your own box and it should expand as you type into it. We're gonna look at what you think is the most exotic place you could think of going to, right? So each person in your group should think of at least one place that seems like the most exotic place you could ever visit if you were to go on vacation. If we could all go on vacation right now, right? Where would you like to go? Or what do you think of as like the most exotic location in the world? And then add some descriptors. What makes that an exotic place? What do you think of when you think of that place? And then we'll fill this in together after. But fill these first two out in your group. So let me see here. Okay, so I'm gonna send you an invite for your breakout room. I'm gonna give you about 5 minutes, and then we'll come back together and talk about this. Okay. Okay, so I think everybody's back now. Yes. Okay. Great. So these look like some good brainstorms so far. So why don't we kind of talk about these? So in terms of locations, let's see. Breakout room 4 is still typing. So how about breakout room 2? What were these locations and why did you choose them?
So I was in breakout room 2 and I chose India. I, growing up, have watched a lot of Bollywood film, but also during quarantine, I've gone to my go-to Bollywood films. And I kind of wrote that if I was to think of the most exotic place, I would think of a place that is the most different in a lot of ways from what's in our community, like Santa Cruz, and like kind of just this California bubble we have here. And I thought that through Bollywood, I have seen the architecture and like the sense of color. And I just want to explore and taste the authentic food of the culture, as well as the sense of family and community is different in India as opposed to a lot of different places around the US. We all have different perspectives and ways that our families are run. But in India, there's a bigger emphasis on community and culture and family that I think would be really fun to experience and learn that perspective. I've never been out of the US, so I don't know if India would be my first place to ever go because it is so different. But if I was thinking most exotic, that's kind of my top tier.
Okay, yeah. So thinking about and India being a country having many different cultures within one place. Yeah. So and there's a lot of difference between one region of India and another. So your group chose Africa, India, and Japan. So let's see, learning about other cultures and animals. So having kind of yeah, we think of like a lot of animals from the continent of Africa being kind of like the most exotic. And like when you go to a zoo, you always want to see like lions and tigers, right? Even though those are actually also in like other continents as well and in India. Let's see. Food is something we talked about, colors. So the idea of other places being very colorful, right? Japan, merchandise. Yeah, so they're very like kind of cute, right? Kitschy kind of things. Peaceful, family's gone, but you haven't. Tokyo Disney, Hello Kitty. Okay, okay. And then how about breakout room 4?
Yes, I chose Cinque Terre, that's in Italy. I chose that one because since I was a little girl, I remember my mom buying this beautiful frame and it has colorful houses, the beaches outside, and it was just nice. And throughout the years growing up, I find out that it was real, that it existed. I thought it was just a paint. And of course I Google and I, kind of research, and it's very rich in history and culture. Good food, pasta's my favorite. So after so many years going back to school, I promised myself that if I keep going and I graduate, I'm gonna go there for my graduation celebration. So I not only like that frame, but now it's a motivation for me to keep going. I have a little frame in my house and I see that and I'm like, hey, you can do it. So that's something to look for every day.
Oh, good. Yeah. And well, hopefully it'll be really cheap once you graduate. And you
Yes,
can
but
go.
yes, I know. It's expensive and the times
Yeah.
that we're leaving, who knows if we can travel, but hey, um, like I said, that's my motivation. So if it's not soon, hopefully one day.
Yeah. And you know, so like the Cinque Terre being these 5
Little
towns.
towns, yes.
And like you can hike along those, and they're all along kind of the ocean, and they're really like high up, very super picturesque. So kind of again like colorful houses, the beach, having kind of a rich sense of culture, being near the ocean. Your group also included Denmark, so the birthplace of the Little Mermaid story. Colorful again. So who wrote, was that Hans Christian Andersen, I think, who wrote
Yes.
it? Okay,
Yes.
okay. Yeah. So yeah, feeling very different from the United States. South Korea. So trying to research part of somebody's culture, beautiful scenery, again, more rich culture and history, wanting to learn more about it. Okay. And then breakout room 1.
I think I was breakout room 1. I think I was. Anyways.
It's okay. I think you were.
I mentioned like Latin countries when I consider the fact that it's something that I'm not too familiar with, and but I do know that it has like very rich history, and maybe considering like Afro Latinas and how the African diaspora kind of like meshes with those countries. I feel like I would really maybe consider that to be more exotic, as I'm not like too familiar with it, but I know it shares like a lot of similarities with my ancestral history. So
it's something that feels like it's different, right? That you have not experienced before, that feels like it's a different culture.
yeah.
And then let's see, then your group also included Morocco and Antarctica. So the desert, so maybe a different type of landscape than people are like used to at home, salt deposits, arts, and natural resources. A lot of people from Europe and Spain moved to Morocco like in the 50s and 60s. A lot of like expats went there, you know, kind of seeking this bohemian culture and being accepted in ways that they were not at home. There was a large like LGBTQ community there, but it was a lot of expats who kind of went there to escape home, right? And then Antarctica, yeah. I don't think you could get any like different than anybody's place of origin in Antarctica. I think if any of you watch Anthony Bourdain's shows, I think he did an episode where he goes to Antarctica, to one of the research areas there. Okay, and then breakout room 3.
So we chose to talk about, well, the first one was Thailand. So me and Lauren talked about Thailand primarily. And I guess, you know, to go along with what other people were saying, you know, it contrasts our culture and what surrounds us quite significantly. The climate is very different, more of a tropical climate. There's jungles, which house exotic animals like elephants and so on. The cuisine is also quite different. And their culture is really deep and like religiously affiliated too. So, you know, a lot of the things you do in Thailand are, you know, associated with their religion and right with Buddhism. So you go to lots of temples and whatnot. And, you know, obviously the language is quite different. And even like the public transport, like I really wanted to go to Thailand in June, like prior to all of this happening. And I was like, I don't really want to rent a car or anything. And then I found out that you don't really have to, and you can take like these little like tuk-tuk, that's what they're called. They're like very fun looking, and they're basically like little like scooters that you hop on with maybe just like one or, yeah, really just one other person, because they're pretty tiny and they're super cheap. Yeah, and then our other teammate talked about Brazil and, you know, how, you know, with the rainforests and, you know, the steakhouses and, you know, he was talking about how he really was interested in going to Carnival. And so that's just like a very like exotic, you know, contrasting culture as well, even with like the language. And yeah, so we just kind of, you were like, it's really just down to your perspective too, because it's like, you know, I'm sure foreigners think we're also we're exotic to a certain extent, you know.
Yeah, if anybody has, so that's kind of an interesting observation. So if anybody has ever visited Europe, like any country in Europe mostly, they they're kind of seen as the seat of the West, right? And so Americans are kind of viewed as foreigners, well, obviously, but kind of being exotic, right? And people can be kind of fascinated with our experience of American culture. I remember going like in high school, where are we at? Maybe it was in Paris. And we were teenagers. I think we were going to it was some trip with the school, but we went to some club one evening. I don't know how we convinced people, the teachers, to let us go. But we were in line, and then these kids in front of us were like, oh, you guys are from California. And they start singing, I wish we all could be, what is it? I wish they all could be California girls, right? So that's kind of like, we get a tiny taste of that experience. Okay, so what I wanted to look at here then is home, right? So how might this contrast with, how might these ideas of the exotic, maybe we talked about being colorful, having a different like location, like beaches or deserts, rainforests and whatnot, food that was really like appealing, architecture, right? A different sense of community, that sort of thing. So how does that contrast with home? What are your, when you think about home, what are some words that come to mind? And I'll kind of type these up.
For me, when I think of just like the US in general, and I think of like, say, Japan, like I think of like the, just like the cult, like the mindset of the people. Like in Japan, like in USA, so a lot of people use like credit cards, debit cards. We're notorious for using our cards and any like thing like that. But in Japan, they're more notorious on using cash. They prefer to have large amounts of cash on them, and they pay with cash. So it's, I think like the mindset of the people is what makes it exotic and very different from us, like the way that they approach like the community sense.
So different like monetary systems, kind of relying more on cash, and then having more like of a communal sense, right? So in the West, it's more of like an individualistic, and so they're more of like community.
I would say familiarity breeds safety.
Safety, except for right now.
Well, yeah. But like being familiar with the US, and like each state does have varying laws, but generally knowing what they are, there's safety in the familiarity of being in your home. Even if it's not California, I feel generally safe if I go to Indiana and something happens. I know where to go, what to do, as opposed to, as a female, I don't know if I'd travel alone abroad. Like in the US, I at least have my car. I know people in different states, and or I generally have a good idea of what places I would frequent if I was on my own.
Yeah, so I think, so that idea of familiarity kind of combining with feeling safe and feeling like I know what's expected, I know my community. Now, to reverse that, if you talk to friends abroad, right? I don't know if any of you have had friends abroad who say, oh my God, are you, how do you like go around? There's shootings going on all the time. The police are shooting people. People get robbed a lot. Being a woman, you can't go out, right, at night. I had friends from Japan who were here for a while and wanted to like this was years ago. People don't really do this anymore. But like when I was in college, this one friend wanted to go to like a dance club and nobody wanted to go. So she's like, oh, I'll go by myself. No, don't do, you can't do that, right? That's not safe. But when you're familiar with something, it feels relatively safe. But looking at it from the outside, the US is really not a safe place, right? But it's this kind of like sense that we have that this is what we know. Anybody else thoughts about home, words that come to mind?
I would say comfort, because like here in the United States, we're so used to just staying in our comfort zone, whereas in like a different continent or like city outside the US, they're just open to everything. And like new things are over there and all that.
So is it like newness can be kind of exciting, but is it also like scary too?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so maybe a little bit of anxiety. Oh, well, that would be abroad, like abroad having a little bit of anxiety or fear, like I'm not sure what's expected. I'm not sure what's expected of me there. Oh, no, undo. I don't know what is what is good to do in terms of behavior, right? Anything else?
One thing I would say is maybe accessibility. Just be like, I've been to Europe a couple of times, and this is so small, but it's even being able to use your phone, that you have to get a certain plan with your whoever your carrier is. But even then, like I would rely on my phone. Like in America, we rely on our phone to get us to locations. We use Waze or maps or whatever, but when you travel, you don't always have that same accessibility, which then creates that fear, because the one little thing that might help you can't even help you. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So like feeling you have that, like, I want to say umbilical cord, but like that connection to home, like being able to, yeah. Like, so like when I,
source that you can rely on.
Yeah, because like when I go abroad, I just use like Wi-Fi and WhatsApp and stuff, but you can't always get a hold of people in the same way. Yeah, yeah, no, definitely. Also the accessibility, I'm thinking about like ADA, right? A lot of countries don't have ADA. So if you're somebody with a physical disability, it's very difficult to get around and to get into buildings and to travel. But like interestingly too, like when I lived in New York for a time, and I went to Columbia University for grad school. And I don't know if any of you have seen like the Columbia University campus or pictures of it. Beautiful, like what you typically think of as like college, right? But it's so inaccessible. It's incredibly frustrating. And all the buildings like have stone steps going up to them and marble steps. And the university for a long time refused to put in ramps for wheelchairs to get up from one part of campus to another, because they said, wow, it just doesn't look right. It's going to mess up the way things look. I don't know. People can go around and go all the way around the block. So yeah, that's a big issue here too. And I'll just add another thing or two. Anybody think of home as boring?
I think sometimes when people get into like a routine and they get stuck in a routine, like some people like a routine, but sometimes the monotony of the same thing and, you know, over and over, like going to class, going to work, going to school, and just being in that cycle can oftentimes, I think, breed like a need to break out, and it makes you a little stir crazy. I think that's what happens to people, where they just feel like they're stuck. So once they hit that stir craziness, they want to do something unexpected, or like they need to do something, or else they feel like they're going to go insane.
Yeah, so feeling this weight of monotony, of everyday responsibilities, of getting up, going to work, or doing work online, going to school, having to pay bills, having to cook. Like right now, it also like being at home, I feel like all I do all day is chores, right? Cooking and cleaning and washing and vacuuming and like over and over and over and over again, right? So we want an escape from that. Oh, so actually, I'll talk about this more in a minute, but when we look at A Small Place by Jamaica Kincaid, she talks about this, right? That the ability to travel is really a privilege. And everybody wants to escape and everybody wants to get out and get away at some point, especially right now. But we all can't, right? We all can't afford to, maybe in terms of time or responsibility, or, you know, think about your parents or grandparents as well. I'm sure they wanted to leave and go somewhere, and because of their responsibilities, maybe they couldn't. Okay, great. These are all really good. So let me stop sharing. So these ideas about exotic, and I had a definition of exotic somewhere, but I cannot find where I put it. It may be on one of my other files. So thinking of the exotic is thinking of something that is very, very different from what's known, right? Very different from someone's home place, something that seems like far off, far away, just kind of incredible in its difference. So those ideas of difference and what seems really like full of fantasy and a place that we really want to picture, that we want to go and get away. A lot of that comes back to this travel writing that we're going to look at this semester. So let me share our syllabus. Hold on. Okay. Oh, I did want to mention too that we do have like some spots left in the class. So if you have any friends who are still looking for a course, please have them contact me. I'd love to have them join the class as well. And I find this to be like a really kind of like exciting class. So let's see. Okay, so in terms of travel narratives, a lot of this information is also on our homepage, but in case you need it, it's here. I have my phone number here for my office, but I'm not even sure how to get to my voicemail right now because we can't go to our offices. So email is the best way to get a hold of me. I did include a quote here that nostalgia is a blurry lens through which we can view history. We often rewrite it so the hard, inconvenient parts are pushed to the sidelines in favor of what makes us feel good. Right? So I'm going to ask us throughout the semester to challenge our feelings of nostalgia. Even if something feels really close to us, I want us to still question that and say, okay, is this something that is problematic or not? And am I willing to reevaluate it? Okay. So in terms of our text for the class, there is A Small Place, like I mentioned. It's a very brief book, but it's a really great book. Some of the students told me it's their favorite reading in the semester. So this is by Jamaica Kincaid. This is available online. There's many used copies out there. So please look for this, and you'll probably want to keep this book after anyway. I did find out that the library is going to start checking out books to people. So if you do need a book, please contact them. They can actually ship books to you, or if you're nearby, you can drive up and pick them up. But okay, so there's A Small Place. And if any of you have trouble getting these books, please let me know, okay? And then also Christopher Columbus, The Four Voyages, okay? So this one is a really interesting look at his mind. It's from his own writing about his different voyages to the New World, and also some others writing for him. So when we read through these chapters, some of them are going to seem a little thick, but don't worry. I want you to kind of go through them, read them, and take them in, and we'll discuss them. Make sure then you have something to write with, to take notes on. Oh, this should be updated from iLearn to be Canvas. Okay, so I'm going to kind of go through this. I'm going to try to go through it quickly because I know you all don't want to read this, but I want to go through it because it's important for our class. So travel narratives have played a really powerful role in shaping social inequality by relating journeys to home audiences, portraying the other, and revealing the culture and the self of the traveler. This course examines the historical, literary, and cultural significance of narratives that convey and reinforce themes of discovery, conquest, colonization, exploration, and tourism in the Americas. The historical readings and intriguing films we encounter in class will help demonstrate the ways in which the New World, often the Americas, are described by the West. We'll explore the ways othering has been constructed and used in colonial contexts. Othering defines the West as existing in opposition to the other. So they're kind of seen as like complete opposites, complete binary. But this is largely a fictional narrative that's reinforced in popular film, academia, writing, television, and art. The class will examine the roots of this rhetoric, the ways similar narratives continue today, as well as the means through which these are counteracted and spoken back to. Course text will problematize worldviews and challenge power imbalances. So also to mention this quote that I included, Solejo is a food writer for the San Francisco Chronicle. And so she came on a couple years ago and really has taken, has used her writing to kind of take down a lot of this exoticization of food. So she's an interesting person that we'll be looking at later in the semester. So some of the films that we're going to look at in class: The Couple in the Cage, Edward Said's On Orientalism, Aguirre, The Wrath of God, La Otra Conquista, and Cabeza de Vaca, right? So kind of preview some of these for yourself. Some of them have some challenging topics, so just FYI, but all of them are going to kind of contribute to our understanding this semester. In terms of our learning outcomes, so we're going to describe and situate travel texts historically, geographically, and culturally. We're going to describe and analyze and interpret rhetorical strategies that are used in these texts that try to justify the traveler's perspective. We're going to look at cultural works within their global and social contexts, right? So cultural works being like art, music, writing, various things. We're going to situate and explain the travel texts in larger local and global histories, economic systems, geographies, cultural and discursive practices. Analyze and interpret the impact of travel, and especially how the text perpetuates systems of exploitation and subjugation, stereotypes and ideologies about the other, right? So if you look at like colonial powers in the West, especially England, the United States, what are some other countries that I can think of? Portugal, right? A lot of these countries really benefited from using these narratives to justify, honestly, like the slave trade, right? And benefiting from like tobacco and sugar and cotton, right? And so all of like that can be traced back to these like travel narratives. Using critical theories to support your argument and interpretation, and then researching, describing, and interpreting the confrontation between Europe and the Americas from 1492 to the present. Okay, don't worry, this is all worked into everything that we'll be doing in class. So like I mentioned, the class is hybrid. So we have our synchronous meetings on Mondays. Our asynchronous, meaning independent work, is the Wednesday class. So most weeks we're going to have one Zoom meeting. If we end up kind of, and I'm doing that because like the concepts that we are discussing are kind of difficult to wrap our heads around. So I want to make sure that we have time to discuss those together, okay? If we need to and if time allows, we can kind of not have a meeting every week, but we'll kind of see how things go, okay? So in terms of expectations, you know, I want to make sure that you're consistently here. If for some reason you can't or you have connectivity issues, let me know, because I can record classes if we need to. Just make sure that you do the work, okay? So make sure that you watch the films that I link to, do the readings so you're prepared, because the readings are really going to help you understand what we're dealing with. And they'll kind of give you kind of a deeper comprehension in general. And then also so you're prepared for our discussions. I'm also going to ask you to kind of reflect on yourselves, like what we've been doing so far. today is thinking about how you relate to these different things. And what else do I want to mention about that? Yeah, so this is a space where I don't want you to judge yourself, and also don't judge other people, right? Because we're all kind of trying to come to this understanding from different places. So don't feel like you have to really be harsh on yourself about it. But I do also want you to keep in mind that when we're sharing these things, that we are sharing this with people who all have different identities and experiences, and we don't want to kind of tear them down through like what we're sharing. And like race is going to be something that we talk about a lot. Okay, so just kind of be sensitive to that. There's some other things. Okay, so when you need to get a hold of me, just make sure that you email me. I will email you back, usually within the day. If it's late in the evening, I will probably just email you back the next day. If you need to meet with me, use my Google Calendar and the links that are on Canvas. In terms of accommodations, if you're a student who has a learning difference or disability, please let me know. And I want to make sure that you're successful in the course. Yeah, just please make me aware of this. If you need any resources, make sure to reach out to the Student Disability Resource Office. The Cooperative Learning Center is still offering support. So if you want somebody to help you with some of your papers or any of your research, please reach out to them because they are doing that virtually. And if you do reach out to them, I'd be glad to give you extra credit. Wellness, please take care of yourselves right now. I know that's so hard, but really like you need to keep your wellness in mind so you don't get burnt out. So if you do need support in any way, please let me know. There's also the basic needs page on campus, their food pantry, many other resources that they have created in response to COVID and then to the fires. Okay. Technology, like as long as you guys can get on your Gmail, access Canvas. We already use Google Sheets, Google Docs. I'm not super worried about this. You guys will be fine. But now if at any point you have any issues with connectivity, you can always call into our Zoom meetings and use the phone number on the invitation there. Academic integrity. So just make sure that you are not plagiarizing, right? You're not having somebody else write your papers for you, even if you're at home. Because this is your own personal learning and growth. So I want you to try. So don't worry and expect any of your writing to be perfect. I don't want it to be. I just want you to try. What else do I want to add about that? Oh, just make sure too when you're doing your research that you are citing your sources, that you're acknowledging where you got the information from. Even if you're paraphrasing, needs to have a citation. Okay, so our assignments. So all of your assignments will be turned in on Canvas, and okay, so our assignments are going to include your personal travel log. So this is kind of a low stakes assignment. It's going to be one of our first ones. Now for this semester, I'm open to have a video recording or an audio recording if you want to do that instead of a paper. Okay, that's an option for you. Or if you want to write an essay, please do so. But any of those options can be used for most of these major assignments. And also our journals as well. So remind me, I'll talk about that before we're done. So you're going to discuss a personal travel experience that you have had and thinking about what you saw and how you reacted to it, maybe what your lens was as a traveler, okay? And so we're going to use this later in the semester when you write your critical travelogue, you're going to kind of look back on that and say, okay, these are themes that I see that came out from that. So being really honest about what you saw, how you felt about it, how that experience was for you will be really useful. I don't remember what else I wanted to say about that, but now our public representation analysis. So you'll be in small groups and you're going to analyze some sort of public facing monument, piece of artwork, maybe an exhibit or some sort of interpretive site, maybe like a historic site that represents the West's interaction with the New World. So I know since we can't physically go to a lot of these places right now, a lot of museums have exhibits and artwork online, right? Some of you may live near a historic monument that you can visit, but that's going to be up to your group, okay? So you're going to talk about how these groups were portrayed and kind of evaluate how othering may have played into that monument, and maybe suggest ways that it could be fixed. Now, interestingly, when last time I did this class was before a lot of the social movements and protests this year. And so I know a lot of you know that monuments have been torn down, right? Ones that were very problematic. So that's a really interesting thing. You could even talk about some that have been removed. Collaborative research presentation. So in this one, your group is going to pick a work of popular culture. So it could be a film, a TV show, a book, some other like example of kind of like some of the clips that we looked at the beginning of class. Okay, so you'll pick one of those and really examine it in depth, looking at how the West and the other confront each other. Then your critical travelogue, near the end of the semester, we'll just look back at your personal travelogue and say, okay, what have I learned? And how did my lens as a traveler kind of reflect itself in my original writing? We'll have some journals. And so in the journals, you'll be responding to your readings and then participation points. And just so you know, at any time we can change any of this if we need to. Any questions on the syllabus so far?
When you said citations, is it APA, MLA?
Oh, okay. I prefer MLA.
Okay.
Yeah, but if you're used to using APA, as long as you're consistent in your paper, that's fine. Okay. But just remember, any of these can be recorded too. So let me also look at our journal guidelines. Okay. Oh, and I included this image too. It's kind of hard to see, but thinking about us as travelers, right? We always want to take photographs of where we are. We feel like if we haven't taken a photograph of it, the experience never existed, right? So we're going to think about that and think about the travel lens. And selfie sticks are incredibly annoying, but okay, so in our important information module, there are our journal guidelines. So if you've taken me before, I have shifted this a little bit. So when you do your journal, you will submit that here on Canvas and make sure to complete your journal before the next class, right? And so if I have a journal for that class, it will say before class, right? So make sure you complete it before then so you're ready to go. Now you can either type, so if you want to handwrite it, that's perfectly fine. You can just handwrite it out in a physical journal, take a photograph of it and upload that, right, for your journal. If you want to type it out, it should be 300 to 500 words. Or if you want to record it, either with audio or video, you could totally do that instead. And so just talk to me about it, Okay, I just want to know that you're responding. And if in your response you want to do a piece of artwork, you want to write something creative, great. I'm very open to that. I just want to know that you're responding to the text. So in your journal, you should have sections 1 and 2. And if you could number those for me when you're submitting it, that would be really great. So then I know that you've done those. So in section 1, you're just summarizing the text. So that way I know that you have read it or watched it. So you'll be explaining the key events, concepts, or takeaways. So just so I can get a sense that you know what the text is about or have at least tried to know what it's about. Some of them may be confusing, that's okay. So describe what happened in it, maybe include a quote if you want, something that stood out to you. So this is half of your journal. The second half is where you can respond to the specific questions that I posted for those, and I'll show you one of those, or react to the reading or the film. So do you agree with it? Do you disagree with it? What prompted your reaction? What kind of gut reaction did you have to it? If you want to be really creative here, great, do that. So this is your second part of your reaction. So it's time to have 1 and 2, okay? So for each week, you're going to look at your descriptions, right? And it'll tell you what to do before class and what we will do in class, okay? But let me look at this week. Okay, so we've kind of gone through these. Now for your journal, I'm actually gonna have you guys do this on your own. And just use kind of the discussion that we had in our brainstorming document. I'll put a link to that in iLearn as well. But think about what is the most exotic place you know of. So whatever you shared within your group could be your response, okay? And you do not have to follow the 1-2 guideline if you don't want to for this one. So just for somebody who's never been there before, what do you think of what comes to your mind? Why is it exotic? How would you define that, okay? Now for the next class for Wednesday, which will be on your own, please watch my short video discussing each of these pieces. You'll read the otherness article, really important to read. And then you're gonna watch the couple in the cage video. Okay, so with this one, don't look it up ahead of time, just watch it. And I want you to watch the first half of it, so up to like minute 13:30. And then respond. Okay, so think about where do you feel like this couple's coming from? What do you know about their culture? What is your reaction to this? What is your reaction to them being on display? What is your reaction to the audience's reaction, right? And then watch the second half and think about your response. Did any of that change for you? How did that connect to the history of colonialism, excuse me, human exhibition, all of that stuff. And then you can look it up after and we'll talk about it. But I just wanted to get your like gut reaction to this, all right? And then I also included some important terms here: ethnocentrism, exotic, exoticism, othering. Okay, so these are important to keep in mind. And again, please watch this course navigation video that's really short. Any questions for me?
So journal 1 is going to be the exotic place.
Yes.
We're going to write. And then journal 2 is the couple in the cage, right?
Yes. So you can always refer back to the description in the module and always read that before class because it will tell you what we need to do and it'll have links for you and it'll have a description of the journal.
Where do we submit journal 2?
So journal 2, let's see, will be here. So it's under, yeah, so it'll be, oh, why is that there? Let me move it.
Yeah, that's why, because I saw it under
Oh,
week 2.
no, I'm still updating these, and yeah.
No worries.
My schedule changed right before the semester started. So a lot of things I'm going to be kind of adding as we go along. So please bear with me. Yeah, so journal 2 is here. If any of them are in the wrong place, let me know, but you can always kind of find them there and find them in the assignments too. Oh, and an extra credit. If you end up watching any films or attend any online seminars on something, write about it, write a 1 to 2 page reflection, or give me like a audio or video recording of when you're talking about it, and I will gladly give you extra credit. Okay. All right, any other questions for me?
When are the due dates? So like for week 1, when is that due?
Just make sure to complete those before our next class, before our next Zoom meeting. Okay, but don't give yourself a lot of extra time and be like, oh, I've got plenty of time, I can wait. Don't do that, okay? Because these readings do take a lot of like thinking, and so they may take you a while to read them. So give yourself time to do that, okay? And then the couple in the cage video is only like half an hour. So watch that and then give your reaction to it. All right?
I have a question real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Do we take sort of quizzes and stuff where we would need to take notes on? Okay.
But you should take notes for yourself, because when
Yeah.
you're doing your analysis, you're going to want to refer to some of these topics later.
Okay.
You don't have to take super extensive notes if you don't want to.
Just checking. The last Hcom I took was Shakespeare, and you needed specific notes. Okay.
I want us to survive this semester. I don't want to kill you all. So
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions for me?
Yes, I know you mentioned that homework is due before the next class, so Monday homework should be submit before Wednesday.
Oh, okay. So this Monday's homework, yeah, should be done before Wednesday. But honestly, as long as you have it done before next Monday, that's fine with me. Okay. Unless it's like one of the major assignments when I give you a specific due date. As long as you do your journals before our next Zoom meeting, that's great.
And then how do you want us to submit the journal entries? What's like through email, or is there a?
No, so if you go on, let me show you. Sorry. So if you click here, so if you go onto the modules on Canvas, so everything's on Canvas, and you should be able to get to that from your dashboard. Click on the journal, and then you will be able to submit it here. So I think you do, I'm looking at this from my own. Let me see. Let me go back. I'm using the student view here, so let's see how it looks for you. Okay, so you click Submit Assignment. Okay, so here you can either enter text, right? If you have media, you can record and upload it here. Google Drive, you can upload a link. I kind of prefer that you just copy it and paste it in here. Or if you want to record it, that you submit a recording here. Okay. But if you have any issues with that, let me know. But this seems like it should be pretty kind of straightforward. Okay, well, I will be having my office hours starting at 10, so from 10 to 11. If you need anything, please jump onto my office hours and let me know. I look forward to working with you this semester. I think it's going to be really fun and interesting. And if you have friends who want to join us, please, tell them to add the class. Okay, take care of yourselves. Please be safe.
You too.
Okay.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everybody.
Have a good day.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.